A broke college student saves a bloodied stranger in a midnight laundromat, not knowing he's a Korean mafia boss who never forgets a debt and never lets go of what he wants. Welcome to the channel. You're about to hear a story that reminds us why love, patience, and hope still matter. Before we begin, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share the story with someone who needs hope today. Your support helps these stories reach hearts that truly need them. Drop a comment and let us know where you're watching from. And now, let's go straight into the story. Amanda Reed is drowning, juggling double shifts, late tuition payments, and a boyfriend who takes more than he gives. But one fateful night, a wounded man stumbles into her world, and everything changes. Byun Woo isn't just dangerous. He's the most powerful crime lord in the city, and he's decided that Amanda is his. What starts as a mysterious act of generosity, her tuition paid in full, quickly becomes a calculated claim of ownership. As Byun Woo pulls her deeper into his violent, glamorous empire, Amanda discovers the boyfriend she's been sacrificing for has been bleeding her dry all along. Trapped between a parasite who sees her as a resource and a kingpin who sees her as a queen, Amanda must face brutal syndicate traditions, assassination attempts, and her own fears about power and worth. In a world where love is a weapon and loyalty is bought in blood, Amanda will have to choose. Stay small and safe, or rise beside the man who would burn the city down to keep her. Amanda's hands trembled as she stared at the student portal on her cracked phone screen. The balance that had been glowing red for months, $8,347 in past due tuition, now read 0. Paid in full. Anonymous donor. She refreshed the page 3 times, certain it was a glitch. But the receipt was there, timestamped at 3:47 a.m. 2 days ago. Right after she'd left the laundromat. Right after she'd bandaged a bleeding stranger with her last clean shirt and asked no questions. "This has to be a mistake," she whispered, even as relief flooded through her so intensely it made her dizzy. No more payment plan rejections. No more threats of academic suspension. No more choosing between textbooks and groceries. Marcus barely looked up from his phone when she told him. "Probably some scholarship you forgot you applied for," he muttered, scrolling through Instagram. He was sprawled across her twin bed in the cramped apartment they technically weren't supposed to share, wearing the new Jordans she definitely hadn't seen him buy. "You're always filling out those things." She wanted to believe him. Needed to believe this was legitimate, earned, hers by right and not by accident. For 3 blissful days, she let herself breathe. She bought the medical textbooks she'd been pirating PDFs of. She ate lunch. She slept past 5 a.m. for the first time in months. Then the black SUVs arrived. Amanda was leaving her anatomy lecture when the first whispers started rippling through the quad. A convoy of 5 matte black Escalades had pulled up to the main campus entrance, idling in perfect formation despite the no parking signs. Students clustered at windows, phones out, filming. Campus security approached and then retreated, walkie-talkies crackling with confusion. She didn't connect it to herself until she saw him. Byun Woo stepped out of the center vehicle like he was emerging onto a red carpet, not a public university sidewalk. The cuts on his face had healed into thin scars that somehow made him more striking, and the afternoon sun caught the edge of a tattoo creeping above his collar. He wore a black suit that probably cost more than her entire year's tuition, and he moved with the unhurried confidence of a man who knew the world would wait. Their eyes met across 50 yards of concrete and panicking students. He smiled. Slow, dangerous, inevitable. Amanda's blood turned to ice. She spun and walked the other direction fast, her anatomy textbook clutched to her chest like a shield. Maybe if she didn't acknowledge this, didn't engage, he would leave. It was a mistake. A misunderstanding. She'd helped a stranger and now she'd disappear back into her anonymous broke student existence and Amanda Reed. His voice carried across the quad without him even raising it, accented and smooth as expensive whiskey. Every head turned. Every phone angled toward her. She stopped walking. She didn't turn around. His footsteps approached, measured and certain, accompanied by the heavier tread of bodyguards. She could feel dozens of eyes on her back, questions already forming. Who is she? How does she know him? Is that her sugar daddy? "We need to talk," Byun Woo said, close enough now that she could smell his cologne. Dark, woodsy, nothing like Marcus's drugstore body spray. About your debt. She finally turned, keeping her voice low and furious. I don't have a debt. I don't know you. His smile widened, and something flickered in those dark eyes. Amusement, possession, warning. He took a single step closer, invading her space in a way that made her breath catch. You used your shirt to stop my bleeding. You asked for nothing in return. So I gave you everything. He produced a black business card from his inner pocket, pressing it into her hand. His fingers were warm, calloused, decorated with silver rings. My interest is simple, Amanda, he murmured, voice dropping to something intimate and terrifying. You. Then he walked away, his entourage falling into formation around him, leaving her standing frozen in the center of campus with 100 phones recording her unraveling life. Wait, before I continue, hit subscribe and tell me where you're watching from, because this next part is insane. Amanda didn't go home for 3 days after the campus incident. She crashed in the nursing building study lounge, telling herself she was just catching up on coursework, pretending the black business card burning a hole in her backpack didn't exist, pretending she couldn't still feel Bayan Wu's rings pressed against her palm. When she finally dragged herself back to the apartment at 11 p.m. on Thursday, exhausted and running on vending machine coffee, she found Marcus exactly where she'd left him. On her bed on his phone, contributing nothing. Babe, finally. He didn't look up. I'm starving. Can you make something? She dropped her bag by the door, too tired to fight. I've been gone for 3 days, Marcus. Yeah, I figured you were busy with school stuff. He stretched, his shirt riding up to reveal the stomach she used to find attractive before she realized it was fed entirely by her labor. So, food. Amanda moved mechanically to the tiny kitchenette, opening cabinets she already knew were bare. She'd given Marcus money for groceries on Monday. $80 she'd made from a weekend shift at the diner. He was supposed to pay her portion of the late rent too, the final bill before her miraculous tuition payment had freed up her finances. Did you get groceries? She asked, though the empty fridge already answered. Oh shit, babe, I forgot. I'll do it tomorrow. The same thing he'd said last week. And the week before. She turned to tell him they needed to talk, that this wasn't working, that she couldn't keep funding his unemployment, and that's when she saw it. His gym bag unzipped on the floor, with something gleaming inside that caught the overhead light. Amanda walked over and pulled out a watch. Not just any watch, a Tag Heuer silver and blue, with a price tag she knew because she'd seen Marcus drooling over it in a mall window 2 months ago. $3,200. Her entire body went numb. Where did you get this? Marcus's head snapped up, eyes widening for just a fraction of a second before his expression smoothed into something practiced. Oh, that. Found it at a thrift store. Probably fake. She turned the watch over. The serial number etched into the back gleamed authentic. The weight of it in her hand was real, solid, expensive. You found a $3,000 watch at a thrift store. Yeah, crazy, right? I got lucky. I gave you money for groceries and rent, Marcus. Her voice came out flat, distant, like it belonged to someone else. $80 on Monday. The landlord texted me yesterday saying we're still late. Where's the money? He sat up, defensive now. I told you I'll handle it tomorrow. Why are you being crazy about this? How much did the watch cost? Amanda. How much? Marcus's jaw tightened. I used my own money, okay? I've been doing Uber on the side. You don't have a car. Silence. She watched him scramble for the next lie, watched the calculations happening behind his eyes. This was the man she'd been sacrificing sleep for, skipping meals for, believing in. The man who'd convinced her that love meant carrying his weight until he got back on his feet. Except his feet were firmly planted on her back. You know what, you're being really controlling right now, Marcus said, standing up. I'm allowed to buy myself something nice. I'm going through a tough time. With my money. The words came out ice cold. You bought a watch with the money that was supposed to keep us from getting evicted. Our rent's not even that late. Get out. Marcus froze. What? Amanda walked to the door and opened it, her hand steady even though her heart was shattering. "Get your watch and get out of my apartment." "Babe, come on, you're overreacting." "Now, Marcus." He stared at her like she'd grown a second head, like the girl who'd been apologizing for breathing had suddenly become someone he didn't recognize. Good. She didn't recognize herself either. When he finally left, slamming the door with his gym bag and his designer watch, Amanda slid down the wall and pulled out the black business card. The number gleamed in raised silver ink. Pause. Subscribe real quick. And drop your country in the comments. You need to witness what happens next. Amanda didn't call the number. She told herself she didn't need to, that kicking Marcus out was enough, that she could handle her own life without involving a man who arrived on campus like a movie villain. She picked up extra shifts at the diner, avoided the quad, and pretended the sleek black cars she occasionally glimpsed near her bus stop were coincidence. The pretending lasted 5 days. She was walking home from her Thursday night shift, exhausted and smelling like fryer grease, when a town car pulled smoothly to the curb beside her. The back window descended, revealing Byun Woo in the leather interior like a predator in his den. "Get in, Amanda." "I'm not getting in your car." "Then I'll say what I need to say here on the street." His eyes glinted in the darkness. "Your boyfriend is at Club Vermilion right now. With someone else. Spending money that isn't his." Her stomach dropped. "Marcus isn't my boyfriend anymore." "Is that what you think?" Something almost like pity crossed his face. "He's been texting you all week. Apologizing. Making promises. You haven't blocked his number." She hadn't. God help her, she'd been reading every pathetic message, feeling her resolve weaken with each "baby I'm sorry," and "I'll change I swear." "How do you?" She stopped, anger flooding through her. "Are you tracking my phone?" "I'm protecting my investment." He leaned forward, voice dropping. "Get in the car, Amanda. Let me show you what you're forgiving." She should have walked away. Should have reported him, blocked him, run in the opposite direction of everything he represented. Instead, she opened the door and slid into leather seats that probably cost more than her entire apartment building. Club Vermilion wasn't a club. It was a temple to excess, buried beneath a nondescript office building in the financial district. Byun Woo led her past velvet ropes and security that melted away at his approach, down marble stairs into a world of crystal chandeliers and bottle service that started at $1,000. "I don't belong here," Amanda whispered, suddenly aware of her diner uniform and scuffed sneakers. "You belong wherever I say you belong." His hand found the small of her back, possessive and warm through her thin shirt. "Third booth from the bar. Look." She didn't want to look. Already knew what she'd see. But her eyes found the booth anyway, drawn like a car crash she couldn't avoid. Marcus sat sprawled across burgundy velvet, arm around a girl in a dress that cost more than Amanda's monthly wages. Champagne bottles littered the table. Dom Perignon, the labels visible even from a distance. He was laughing, phone face down, completely at ease in surroundings he'd always claimed were not his scene when Amanda had suggested nice dates. The girl leaned in to whisper something in his ear. Marcus's hand slid higher on her thigh. Amanda's vision tunneled. "That's my savings account watch on his wrist." "I know." Byun Woo's voice was soft, almost gentle. "He withdrew $800 from your joint account yesterday. The one you opened so he could help with bills." She'd forgotten about that account. Had stopped checking it after the third time Marcus's emergency expenses had drained it dry. "How long have you been watching him?" "Since the moment you became mine to protect." He guided her closer, maneuvering through the crowd with practiced ease. "He's been coming here every weekend. Different girls. Same champagne. Always your money." They were 10 feet from the booth now. Close enough for Amanda to see the receipts scattered on the table, to recognize the bracelet on the other girl's wrist, the one Marcus had claimed his mother gave him, too sentimental to sell even when they were behind on utilities. Marcus looked up. Their eyes met. The color drained from his face so fast Amanda almost felt sorry for him. Almost. Then she saw him glance past her to Byun Woo, saw recognition and terror flood his expression, saw him understand exactly how monumentally he'd fucked up. Byun Woo's hand tightened on Amanda's waist. When he spoke, his voice carried enough menace to silence the nearby tables. I believe you have something that belongs to her. Stop scrolling. Subscribe right now and tell me where you're watching from. Because the twist that's coming? You won't believe it. The bullet hole in Amanda's apartment door appeared 3 days after the club incident. Clean, precise, exactly at head height where she would have been standing if she'd arrived home 10 minutes earlier. She was still staring at it, hand frozen on her keys, when Byun Woo's security team materialized from the stairwell like shadows given form. Pack a bag, the lead guard said, already scanning the hallway with trained efficiency. You have 5 minutes. I'm not going anywhere. Miss Reed. His voice was respectful but immovable. Mr. Byun's orders were very clear. You can pack yourself or we pack for you. 20 minutes later, Amanda stood in a penthouse that occupied the entire 63rd floor of the city's most exclusive building, her duffel bag looking pathetic against the backdrop of floor-to-ceiling windows and marble everything. The skyline glittered below like scattered diamonds, a view that probably cost more per month than she'd earn in a lifetime. Byun Woo emerged from what she assumed was a home office, loosening his tie. Even in his own space, he looked dangerous. Shirt sleeves rolled to reveal tattooed forearms, hair slightly mussed, eyes tracking her every micro-expression. Your things will be brought over tomorrow, he said, like this was settled. I've assigned you the east bedroom. It has its own bathroom and balcony access. I'm not staying here. You are. He poured himself whiskey from a crystal decanter, the ice clinking like punctuation. The Kim family put a price on your head the moment you were seen with me at Vermilion. $20,000. Do you know how many desperate people would kill for $20,000? Amanda's throat went dry. This is insane. I'm nobody. You're mine. He said it simply like stating a fact of nature. That makes you a target and a symbol. The old guard doesn't approve of my choice in women. They're making a statement. So I'm supposed to just live here? Like a prisoner. Like someone who values her life. He crossed to her, moving with that predatory grace that made her pulse spike. The security here is military grade. Bulletproof glass. Armed guards on every floor. Biometric locks. You'll be safer here than anywhere else in the city. She wanted to argue, to insist she could handle herself, but the bullet hole in her door flashed through her mind. Someone had tried to kill her. Actually tried to end her life because she'd been photographed with this man. How long? Her voice came out smaller than she intended. Until it's handled. His eyes softened fractionally. I won't let them touch you, Amanda. But I need you to trust me. Trust. The word tasted bitter after Marcus, after a lifetime of people taking and calling it love. But when Byun Woo looked at her like this, intense, protective, like she was something precious he'd go to war to keep, it didn't feel like the same thing at all. The first week was surreal. Amanda woke in a bed bigger than her entire old bedroom, showered in a bathroom with heated floors, and studied at a desk overlooking a view that belonged in magazines. Byun Woo kept strange hours, disappearing from meetings she didn't ask about and returning with tension in his shoulders she'd learned to read. They circled each other like wary animals. He respected her space, never entering her room uninvited. She pretended not to notice when he stood in his living room at 2 a.m., drink in hand, staring at the city like a king surveying his kingdom. But proximity bred familiarity. She started finding coffee made exactly how she liked it, appearing on the counter before her early classes. He began asking about her day over dinners that somehow became routine, his questions genuine, his attention unwavering. One night she found him on the balcony, late, the city lights painting shadows across his face. Without thinking, she joined him in the cold air. Does it ever get easier? She asked quietly. Living like this? He turned to her, and something unguarded flickered in his expression. No. But it gets less lonely. His hand found hers on the railing, warm and certain. This time she didn't pull away. Hold up, subscribe first. Then comment your location. Now brace yourself. This story is about to explode. Amanda was reviewing pharmacology notes in the penthouse library when Byun Woo's phone lit up on the coffee table between them. He glanced at the screen and something dark crossed his face, something that made the temperature in the room drop 10 degrees. "I need to handle something," he said, standing with lethal calm. "Stay here." "What's wrong?" He hesitated, jaw tightening. "Your ex-boyfriend has made a mistake." Her stomach dropped. Marcus. What did he do? Byun Woo's silence was answer enough. He was already moving toward his office, phone pressed to his ear, issuing commands in rapid Korean. Amanda sat frozen for exactly 30 seconds before abandoning her textbook and following. She found him behind his desk, watching security footage on multiple monitors. Even from the doorway, she recognized Marcus's face on one screen, jaw set in false bravado, standing outside what looked like a police station. "He's threatening to go to the police," Byun Woo said without turning around. "Claims you're being held against your will. That I've coerced you, threatened you, made you an accessory to organized crime." His voice was ice over steel. "He's demanding $500,000 for his silence." Amanda's laugh came out strangled. "That's insane. I'm not. I chose to be here. He has texts. Voice messages you sent when you first arrived, saying you felt trapped." Byun Woo finally turned to face her, and his expression was emptier than she'd ever seen it. "He's not completely wrong, is he? You were scared. You didn't want to come." The accusation hung between them. It was true, she had sent those messages to her roommate, panic-filled rants about bullet holes and forced relocations and men who made decisions for her. Before the heated floors and coffee and late-night conversations that had started feeling less like captivity and more like something she didn't have words for yet. "That was 3 weeks ago," she said quietly. "Things are different now. The police won't care about nuance. They'll see a rich foreign criminal and a poor student. They'll write the story themselves." He pulled up another screen, a recording of Marcus, clearly drunk, bragging to friends about his golden ticket, and how he was going to bleed that Korean bastard dry. Amanda's hands curled into fists. "He's doing this for money. He's doing this because he's desperate and stupid." Byun Woo's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, then stood. "Get your coat." "Why?" "Because you're going to see how I handle parasites." 20 minutes later, they pulled up to a warehouse in the industrial district. Amanda's heart hammered as Byun Woo led her inside, his hand steady on her lower back. The space was vast and cold, lit by hanging industrial lights that cast harsh shadows. Marcus was there, flanked by 2 of Byun Woo's men, looking significantly less confident than he had in the security footage. His eyes widened when he saw Amanda. "Babe, thank God, these psychos grabbed me off the street." "Shut up, Marcus." The words came out of her mouth before she could think. "I know what you're doing." He blinked, recalibrating. "I'm trying to save you. You're trying to extort money." She stepped forward, anger overriding fear. "You stole from me for months. You humiliated me. And now you're pretending to care about my safety." "Amanda." Byun Woo moved past her with terrifying calm, closing the distance to Marcus in 3 strides. When he spoke, his voice was barely above a whisper, but it carried like thunder. "You threatened what's mine. You tried to sell lies about her to the police and to me." He leaned in close enough that Marcus flinched. "I could make you disappear. Completely. No body, no evidence, no story. Do you understand?" Marcus's face had gone chalk white. He nodded frantically. "But I won't." Byun Woo straightened, adjusting his cuffs. "Because she wouldn't forgive me. Instead, you're going to sign a statement admitting this was blackmail. You're going to leave this city tonight. And if you ever speak her name again, if you ever even think about her," his smile was a blade, "I'll reconsider my mercy." Papers appeared. Marcus signed with shaking hands. When they left, Amanda's whole body was trembling. Byun Woo pulled her against him in the car, and she didn't resist. "Thank you," she whispered into his chest. "For not." "I know who you are," he said softly. I'd never make you watch something you couldn't unsee. Amanda couldn't sleep after the warehouse. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Marcus's terrified face, heard Bayan Wu's whispered threats, felt the weight of how easily violence lived in his world. She wandered out to the living room at 3 a.m., drawn by the light spilling from the balcony doors. Bayan Wu stood outside in the cold, wearing only black silk pajama pants. His back was to her, tattooed and muscled, catching the city lights like a canvas of shadows and ink. He held a glass of whiskey loosely, staring at nothing. She should have gone back to bed. Instead, she slid the door open. He didn't turn. You should be sleeping. So should you. She joined him at the railing, the November air biting through her thin sleep shirt. Do you ever sleep? Not much. He took a drink. Not well. They stood in silence, the city humming 63 floors below. Up close, Amanda could see the tattoos properly for the first time. Intricate Korean characters and imagery that flowed across his shoulders, down his spine, wrapping around his ribs like armor made of grief. Can I ask what they mean? She said quietly. Bayan Wu was still for so long she thought he wouldn't answer. Then he set down his glass and turned, letting her see him fully. The tattoos weren't just art, they were a map of violence survived, a record kept in skin and ink. This one, he touched his left shoulder, where a tiger's face snarled in black and gray, is for my father. He was killed when I was 12, shot in front of me during a territory dispute. His finger traced down to Korean characters over his heart. My mother's name. She died 6 months later. They said it was pneumonia, but I know it was grief. Amanda's breath caught. She wanted to say something, but her throat had closed. These, he continued, indicating the chrysanthemums that wound down his right arm, represent the 5 men who raised me after. Every one of them dead before I turned 23. His voice was matter-of-fact, emptied of emotion through repetition. The dragon on my back is for survival, for becoming the monster they needed me to be. He turned fully now, and she saw more, characters running along his ribs, a phoenix rising on his left side, cherry blossoms falling across his chest. Each one a story. Each one a scar. I got my first tattoo at 13, he said. In a basement in Busan with a needle and ink someone smuggled from Japan. It hurt so much I threw up. A ghost of a smile. But the pain meant I was still alive. Still fighting. Amanda reached out without thinking, her fingers hovering over the characters near his heart. May I? He nodded, and she traced the Korean symbols gently. His skin was warm despite the cold, the muscles beneath twitching at her touch. I grew up in East Baltimore, she heard herself say. My dad left when I was 8. My mom worked 3 jobs and still couldn't keep the lights on. Her hand stayed on his chest, feeling his heartbeat. I watched her die slowly from diabetes she couldn't afford to treat properly. I was 17. I had to choose between her insulin and my college application fees. Bayan Wu's hand covered hers, pressing it firmly against his heart. I picked college, Amanda continued, voice breaking. I told myself it's what she would have wanted, but I think about it every day. Wonder if I could have saved her if I just... You survived. His other hand cupped her face, tilting it up to meet his eyes. You made the impossible choice and you survived. That's not weakness, Amanda. That's what warriors do. A sob escaped her throat. He pulled her against his chest, and she let herself cry for the first time since moving into this glass tower. Cried for her mother, for the girl she used to be, for every sacrifice that had carved her into something harder than she'd ever wanted to become. We're the same, he murmured into her hair. Born in different countries, but shaped by the same streets. The same hunger. The same refusal to stay down. She looked up at him, tears on her cheeks, and saw herself reflected in his eyes. Not the struggling student or the girl who'd settled for Marcus's scraps, but someone who'd survived everything and was still standing. When he kissed her, gentle and devastating, she kissed him back. Before I show you the craziest part, hit that subscribe button and tell me where you're watching from. This is about to get wild. The Spring Lantern Festival transformed the waterfront into something magical. Thousands of glowing paper lanterns floating on the river, Food vendors filling the air with the scent of grilled meat and sweet rice cakes, families and couples crowding the boardwalk in celebration. Amanda had never been, couldn't have afforded the overpriced festival tickets before. Now she walked through it on Bayan Wu's arm, wearing a silk dress he'd had tailored for her, trying to ignore the security team trailing 20 feet behind. "You're tense," Bayan Wu murmured, his hand warm on her lower back. "I'm surrounded by thousands of people and your men keep touching their guns." She managed to smile. "Just not used to this yet. You will be." He guided her toward a lantern vendor, and despite everything, Amanda felt her heart lift at the sight of the delicate paper creations. Dragons and phoenixes and flowers in every color. "Choose one. We'll light it together." She selected a lotus, pink and gold, beautiful in its simplicity. Bayan Wu paid the vendor an absurd amount, waving off change, and led her to the lighting station where a line of couples waited to send their wishes skyward. That's when Amanda saw her, a woman in a red coat standing too still in the moving crowd, her hand inside her purse in a way that made Amanda's spine prickle with instinct she didn't know she had. "Bayan." The woman's eyes locked onto Amanda. She started moving, cutting through the crowd with purpose, hand emerging from her purse with something metallic catching the lantern light. Everything happened in fragments. Bayan Wu's security team shoving through civilians. A mother screaming and pulling her children close. The woman's arm raising, a suppressed pistol suddenly visible, aimed directly at Amanda's chest. Bayan Wu moving faster than Amanda thought possible. His body slamming into hers and driving them both behind a vendor stall as the first shot embedded itself in wood where her head had been. Chaos erupted. People ran in every direction, trampling lanterns and food, their festival joy transforming into animal panic. Amanda's ears rang from the gunshot, her ribs aching where Bayan Wu's shoulder had connected, but he was already hauling her up and moving, his men forming a wall of bodies around them. 2 more shots. One of the guards went down with a grunt, clutching his leg. The woman in red was advancing, methodical, reloading as she walked. Professional. Cold. This wasn't some desperate criminal. This was an execution. "The car," Bayan Wu barked, practically carrying Amanda now. His hand was iron on her wrist, pulling her through the scattering crowd. She stumbled over dropped bags and abandoned lanterns, her heels useless on the wooden boardwalk. The assassin fired again. The bullet struck inches from Amanda's foot, splintering wood. She felt the impact vibrate through her bones, felt how close death had come in the space between heartbeats. Then they were at the armored SUV, Bayan Wu shoving her inside with enough force to bruise. He slid in after her, already on his phone, issuing commands in Korean that sounded like declarations of war. Through the window, Amanda watched his security team converge on the woman in red. She didn't run, didn't surrender, just dropped the empty pistol and pulled a knife, ready to die completing her mission. They didn't kill her. They took her alive, efficient and brutal. The SUV peeled away from the waterfront, leaving the festival in ruins behind them. Amanda couldn't stop shaking. Bayan Wu pulled her against him, one hand cradling the back of her head while the other stayed on his phone. "The elders," he said, voice deadly calm. "They hired her. Voted on it 3 days ago. 4-3. He kissed Amanda's temple, tender against the violence still humming in his muscles. "They wanted to purify the bloodline. Remove the foreign contamination before I made it permanent." Amanda pulled back to look at him. "Permanent." His eyes were black fire. "They think you're temporary. A phase. They're wrong." His thumb traced her cheekbone. "I'm going to marry you, Amanda. And then I'm going to remake the entire syndicate so they never question my choices again." She should have been terrified. Should have run. Instead, she kissed him hard, tasting determination and fury and something that felt dangerously like forever. "Then let's make them regret it," she whispered against his mouth. "If you're seeing this, subscribe now and drop your location. Destiny brought you here. The next scene proves it." The meeting was supposed to be neutral ground, a warehouse on the docks where the syndicate elders would hear Bayan Wu's terms and accept Amanda or face consequences. He'd explained it to her that morning over coffee, his voice steady, confident. This was a formality, a show of force. She would stand beside him while he reminded them who held the real power in this city. Amanda had believed him. That was her first mistake. They walked into the warehouse with 8 guards, Byun Woo in a black suit that made him look like death in tailored wool, Amanda in the designer armor he'd chosen for her, a white silk blouse and tailored pants that said she belonged in his world. The elders waited in the center of the vast space, 4 old men in expensive suits, flanked by their own security. The trap didn't spring until Byun Woo was 20 feet from them, too far from the exit, too committed to retreat. The overhead lights died. Muzzle flashes lit the darkness like lightning. Byun Woo's guards returned fire immediately, but they were outnumbered. Not 4 elders worth of security, but 20-30 men emerging from shipping containers and behind crates. This wasn't a negotiation. This was an execution. Byun Woo grabbed Amanda and dove behind a forklift as bullets tore through the air where they'd been standing. His guards were falling, fighting, creating chaos that was somehow both salvation and damnation. He pulled his golden gun from his shoulder holster. The one Amanda had seen him clean obsessively, the one engraved with a dragon that matched his tattoo. "Stay down," he ordered, checking the magazine. "Don't move unless I tell you to." Then he was gone, moving into the firefight with terrifying precision. Amanda pressed herself against the cold metal, watching him work through the gaps in the machinery. Every shot he fired hit its target. Every movement was economy and lethality. He was magnificent and horrible, a god of violence conducting a symphony of death. But there were too many. She saw the moment his gun clicked empty. Saw him reach for a spare magazine that wasn't there. It had fallen when he dove, glinting 10 feet away in a pool of spreading blood. Saw 3 men converging on his position, weapons raised, murder in their coordinated movements. The golden gun lay 5 feet from Amanda, where Byun Woo had set it down to reload. Time crystallized. She could hear her anatomy professor's voice explaining fight or flight response, the physiological changes, the way adrenaline sharpened some things and blurred others. Could feel her mother's hand in hers during their last hospital visit, squeezing hard, telling her to never let anyone make her small. Could see Byun Woo's face on the balcony, vulnerable and raw, showing her his scars. Amanda picked up the gun. It was heavier than she expected, warm from his hands, the dragon engraving pressing into her palm. She'd never fired a weapon in her life, had never even held one. But her hands remembered the motions from 1,000 crime shows, and desperation made her steady. The first man was raising his pistol toward Byun Woo's back. Amanda stepped out from cover, raised the golden gun with both hands, and fired. The recoil shocked through her shoulders. The sound was enormous even through the chaos. The man went down, clutching his leg. Not a kill shot, but enough. Byun Woo spun, eyes finding her across the warehouse, widening with something between horror and pride. The second man turned his weapon toward Amanda. She fired again. Missed. Fired a 3rd time. Didn't miss. Then Byun Woo was there, his backup gun in hand, finishing what she'd started. His remaining guards rallied, pushing the advantage. The ambush was falling apart, the elders' men breaking formation, retreating into the darkness of the docks. When the silence finally came, it was deafening. Amanda stood with the golden gun hanging at her side, her white blouse splattered with blood that wasn't hers, her hands somehow still steady. Byun Woo crossed the distance between them, stepping over bodies with his eyes locked on her face. "You could have stayed hidden," he said, voice rough. "So could you." She held out his gun, handle first. "But we both know that's not who we are." He took the weapon, but his other hand cupped her face, thumb tracing her cheekbone with infinite gentleness. "You saved my life. You saved mine first. At a laundromat." Her smile felt fragile and fierce. "I figured it was time to return the favor. Don't blink. Subscribe, comment your country. Then watch what happens next. You're not ready." The syndicate headquarters occupied the top 3 floors of a glass tower that made Byun Woo's penthouse look modest. Amanda had been here only once before, on a night soaked in blood and ultimatums, when Byun Woo had laid the bodies of the traitorous elders at the feet of the remaining council and dared anyone else to question his authority. No one had. That was 11 months ago. Before the quiet courthouse wedding with 2 witnesses. Before her graduation, where she'd walked across the stage with a nursing degree and a diamond on her finger that cost more than the entire auditorium. Before she'd learned that power wasn't something you were born into. It was something you took and held with both hands, refusing to let go. Now she walked beside her husband through corridors that hushed at their approach, wearing a black suit tailored to fit her like armor, her heels clicking against marble with the confidence of someone who belonged. Bayan Wu's hand rested on her lower back, possessive and proud, guiding her toward the council chamber where the new elders waited. "Nervous?" he murmured, though his slight smile suggested he already knew the answer. "Should I be? They're going to ask you to speak, to prove you understand our world." His fingers pressed gently against her spine. "Some of them still think you're a weakness. A liability." Amanda thought about the golden gun, now mounted in a shadow box in their bedroom, a gift from Bayan Wu on their wedding night, engraved with the date she'd first fired it. Thought about the self-defense training she'd demanded and received, the Korean language lessons she'd mastered, the syndicate politics she'd studied like her anatomy textbooks. Thought about the 3 men who'd tested her in the months after the warehouse, trying to find cracks in her armor, and how efficiently she'd handled each one without Bayan Wu's intervention. "Let them think what they want," she said. "They'll learn." His smile widened, dangerous and delighted. "That's my queen." The council chamber doors opened at their approach, heavy-wood swinging inward to reveal a room of tradition and power. 12 men sat around a lacquered table, a mix of old guard and new blood, united now under Bayan Wu's leadership. They rose as one when the couple entered, a show of respect that would have been unthinkable a year ago. Amanda recognized Park Min-jun, the eldest, who'd voted against her assassination by a single vote. His eyes tracked her with calculating interest as she took her seat beside Bayan Wu at the head of the table. "We're honored by your presence, Mrs. Bayan," Park said in careful English, though Amanda caught the Korean he muttered under his breath to his neighbor, something about American wives and their place. She responded in flawless Korean, her accent nearly perfect after months of immersion. "The honor is mine, Elder Park. Though I wonder if you'd repeat what you just said loud enough for everyone to hear." The room went silent. Park's face paled. Bayan Wu's hand found hers under the table, squeezing once. Pride and warning mixed together. "I apologize," Park said, switching to Korean, inclining his head. "I spoke carelessly." "You spoke honestly," Amanda corrected, her voice steady. "You think I don't belong here. That I'm a weakness that will cost this organization everything." She stood, and Bayan Wu released her hand, letting her command the room alone. "A year ago, I was a broke student who didn't know this world existed. Now I speak your language, understand your traditions, and I've proven I'll kill to protect what's mine." She pulled back her jacket, revealing the small holster at her hip, not the golden gun but her own weapon earned and carried. "I'm not my husband's weakness," she continued, meeting each elder's eyes in turn. "I'm his blade when he needs subtlety, his mercy when he would show none, his connection to the world beyond these towers." She leaned forward, palms flat on the table. "And if any of you still see me as a liability, I invite you to test that theory personally." The silence stretched. Then Park began to clap, slow and genuine. One by one, the others joined him. Bayan Wu stood, moving to stand beside her, his hand finding hers again. Together they faced the council, a king and queen forged in violence and choice, bound by something that looked like love but felt like revolution. "Any other business?" Bayan Wu asked, voice carrying the weight of absolute authority. Park exchanged glances with the other elders. "Actually, there is one matter. The Shanghai Syndicate has requested a meeting. They've heard rumors about your wife. They want to see for themselves if she's real." Amanda felt Bayan Wu's hand tighten around hers, felt the predatory smile curve his lips without having to look. "Tell Shanghai," he said, "that we accept, and that they should prepare to be impressed." As they walked out of the headquarters into the afternoon sunlight, surrounded by security and power and the weight of an empire that was now as much hers as his, Amanda couldn't help but smile. Somewhere in the city below, there was a girl working double shifts, drowning in debt, settling for men who saw her as convenient. Amanda remembered being that girl. She would never be her again. Bian Wu opened the car door, but before she could enter, he pulled her close, kissing her with an intensity that made their guards politely look away. "Ready for Shanghai," he murmured against her lips. Amanda thought about new syndicates to navigate, new battles to fight, new people who would underestimate her until she taught them otherwise. Thought about the girl who'd bandaged a stranger in a laundromat without knowing she was changing both their fates forever. "With you." She kissed him back, fierce and certain. "Always." The car door closed behind them, and the city rolled past the windows, a kingdom they'd built together from blood and choice and the kind of love that didn't ask permission. Whatever came next, they would face it the way they faced everything. Together. Dear viewers, thank you for being here. If you watch without subscribing, it's like Amanda never picked up that golden gun. Still invisible, still settling, still small. When you click that button, you stand with every woman who refused to stay down. Please subscribe now and tell us in the comments where you're watching from.